I smiled politely, but inside something tightened. That was my first warning, and I ignored it. In the early days, I tried so hard to make her love me. Wednesday evening, these old hands of mine started shaking so badly, I nearly dropped the device right there on my kitchen floor. It was from my granddaughter, Rebecca, sweet, beautiful Rebecca, after 18 months of absolute deafening silence. "Grandma, can we have lunch this Saturday? I've missed you so much." I must have read those words 100 times, my eyes filling with tears that made the letters blur and dance. How could 12 simple words suddenly illuminate all the darkness that had consumed my life? Since she decided I was no longer worthy of her love? But when I arrived at her house that Saturday, something happened that I never could have anticipated, something that would shake the very foundations of everything I thought I knew. My name is Margaret Hayes, I'm 70 years old, and exactly 18 months ago, my only granddaughter, the child I helped raise after her mother, my daughter Catherine, passed away from cancer when Rebecca was just 9, decided to erase me from her existence. There was no explosive argument, no single moment I can point to and say, that's when it all fell apart. It was gradual, like watching a flower wilt in slow motion. The phone calls became less frequent, then stopped altogether. The text messages went unanswered. The door that had always been open to me suddenly closed, and I found myself standing on the outside, looking in at a life I no longer recognized. The pain of losing someone who's still breathing, still walking this earth, but no longer knows you or pretends not to is something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. It's a grief without closure, a wound that never quite heals because there's no funeral, no final goodbye, just an endless waiting for something that may never come. I spent countless sleepless nights in my small house in Savannah, sitting in Catherine's old rocking chair, trying to piece together where it all went wrong. Was it after Rebecca married that man, Vincent? Was it when I voiced my concerns about how quickly they were moving? How I barely knew him before they were standing at the altar? Or maybe it was that afternoon at the botanical gardens when I mentioned she looked exhausted, almost ill, and Vincent answered for her, his voice dripping with condescension, that perhaps I should focus on my own health instead of obsessing over hers. Now, staring at that message glowing on my phone screen, I felt like a woman who'd been wandering in the desert for months, suddenly spotting an oasis. I was desperate, parched for connection, not even questioning whether it might be a cruel mirage. The days crawling towards Saturday felt longer than all my 70 years combined. I changed my outfit 6 times that morning before settling on the lavender dress Rebecca had given me for my 68th birthday, back when we still celebrated such occasions together. I applied makeup with trembling hands, trying to hide the deep lines that grief and loneliness had carved into my face. My silver hair, which I used to wear in a neat bun, now hung thin and lifeless, but I did my best to make it presentable. I drove my old Toyota through the tree-lined streets of Charleston. Rebecca and Vincent had moved there 2 years ago, shortly after the wedding, arriving at their neighborhood at 11:45, 15 minutes before our agreed-upon meeting time. I couldn't risk being late, couldn't give her any reason to regret reaching out to me. Their house was in one of those pristine suburban developments where every lawn looks the same, every mailbox identical. I remembered when Rebecca first showed me the listing, how excited she'd been. Vincent had insisted on this particular neighborhood, this particular house. At the time, I thought he was just being particular about their first home together. Now looking back, I wonder if he was already building the cage. The front yard looked different from my last visit, which felt like a lifetime ago, more austere, less welcoming. The rose bushes Rebecca and I had planted together on a sunny spring afternoon were gone, replaced by stark, geometric hedges. I took a deep breath, checked my reflection one final time in the rearview mirror, and opened my car door. That's when something very strange happened. As I was walking up the driveway, I saw Dorothy, the elderly housekeeper who'd been working for Rebecca since they'd moved to Charleston, rushing toward me. Her face was tight with an expression I'd never seen before, a mixture of fear and urgency that made my heart skip a beat. She kept glancing back toward the house, as if checking to make sure she wasn't being watched. "Mrs. Hayes?" she whispered urgently as she reached me, her voice trembling. "Don't go inside. Please, you need to leave, right now." I froze, my feet suddenly feeling like they were encased in concrete. "What? Dorothy, what's going on? Is Rebecca all right?" "It's not about her being all right, ma'am," Dorothy said, her eyes wide with genuine terror. "It's about you. Please, you have to trust me. It's not safe for you here." Before I could form another question, she glanced toward the house again and took a step back. "I have to go before they notice I'm out here. Please, Mrs. Hayes, go, just go." And with that, she hurried back toward the house, leaving me standing there in the driveway, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat, in my temples, everywhere. What on earth was happening? Why did Dorothy look so frightened? And why would my granddaughter, who hadn't spoken to me in a year and a half, suddenly invite me to lunch? I turned back toward my car as if in a trance, my body moving on autopilot while my mind tried desperately to make sense of Dorothy's warning. I got in, locked the doors with shaking hands, and started the engine. But I didn't drive away. Something deep inside me, maybe, the same instinct that had kept me alive through 70 years of life's surprises, told me to stay and observe. From where I was parked, I had a clear view of the dining room through the large bay windows. The curtains were drawn back, as if someone wanted me to look, wanted me to see. For several minutes, everything remained still, the house appearing empty, quiet. And then suddenly, like a stage play beginning, the lights came on one by one, illuminating room after room. Two people I'd never seen before entered the dining room, a man in an expensive-looking suit and a woman, carrying what appeared to be a leather portfolio. Behind them came Vincent, talking animatedly on his phone, gesturing with his free hand as if giving instructions to someone important. And finally Rebecca appeared, dressed in a formal business suit I didn't recognize, her face set in an expression that was completely foreign to me. This was not the face of a woman preparing for a casual lunch with her grandmother. This was clearly a business meeting, carefully orchestrated, deliberately planned. As I sat there, hardly daring to breathe, Dorothy appeared briefly in the window. Our eyes met for just a second, and she gave the smallest, subtlest shake of her head. That tiny gesture confirmed everything I needed to know. Leave, now. But I couldn't move. I had to understand what was happening. Had to see what my granddaughter was involved in. I turned off my headlights and continued watching, feeling like a spy in some terrible movie. Vincent crossed to the dining room table, picked up some papers and handed them to Rebecca. She examined them briefly, signed something, and then smiled, but it wasn't her smile. It was cold, calculated, nothing like the warm, genuine smile of the girl I'd raised. At that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, genuine primal fear. This house where I'd once imagined happy family, gatherings and future great-grandchildren, playing in the yard, now represented something sinister, something dangerous. And somehow, impossibly, my Rebecca seemed to be at the center of it all. 20 minutes passed as I sat paralyzed in my car, watching this bizarre scene unfold. Vincent left the room and returned with more documents. Rebecca checked something on a tablet. The strangers continued their conversation. It looked exactly like what it was, a business meeting, not a family reunion. Then Vincent glanced at his watch and looked directly toward the window, directly at my car. I ducked instinctively, my heart racing, feeling foolish but also terrified. When I dared to peek again, the curtains had been drawn shut, concealing whatever was happening inside. The house that had once represented hope and new beginnings for my granddaughter now looked menacing, full of secrets and lies. I started my car and drove away, but I didn't head home to Savannah. I couldn't. My mind was racing too fast, my heart pounding too hard. I pulled into a gas station about 10 miles down the highway and sat there in the parking lot, trying to organize my thoughts, trying to make sense of what I'd just witnessed. What kind of trap had I almost walked into? Why would Rebecca send me that message for a lunch that clearly was never meant to happen? And most importantly, what did Dorothy know that had made her risk her job, maybe even her safety, to warn me. I pulled out my phone and looked at Rebecca's message again. "Can we have lunch this Saturday? I've missed you so much." The words looked different now, sinister somehow. Maybe it wasn't an invitation to reconnect at all. Maybe it was something much darker. Could my own granddaughter, the child I'd rocked to sleep countless nights after her mother died, the girl I'd taught to ride a bike and helped with homework and cheered on at every school play, could she be plotting something against me? The thought was so painful, so utterly unbearable, that tears began streaming down my face before I even realized I was crying. I went into the gas station restroom to splash cold water on my face. The woman staring back at me from the mirror looked ancient, defeated. My silver hair was disheveled, deep shadows circled my eyes, and fear had carved new lines into my already wrinkled face. Is this what I'd become? Is this what the pain of losing Rebecca had reduced me to? I leaned against the sink and forced myself to take slow, deep breaths. I couldn't fall apart. Not now. I needed to find out what was going on, needed to protect both myself and Rebecca from whatever dark path she was walking down. Back in my car, I noticed a missed call from an unknown number. Seconds later, my phone buzzed with a text message. "Mrs. Hayes, it's Dorothy. We need to talk. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. at the Coffee Corner on Maple Street. It's important. Please don't tell anyone about this message." That night, sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Rebecca's cold smile as she signed those papers, Vincent checking his watch with that calculating look, Dorothy's terrified eyes pleading with me to leave. What were they planning? And why would my precious granddaughter be involved in something aimed at hurting me? When dawn finally broke over Savannah, I was still sitting in my living room, wrapped in Catherine's old Afghan, watching the city slowly come to life through my window. Normal people going about their normal lives, completely unaware of the nightmare I was living through. What would it be like, I wondered, to wake up without this crushing weight of knowing that the person you love most in the world might want to harm you? As the hours crawled toward 2 p.m., a strange determination began growing inside me. I would go to this meeting with Dorothy and learn the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Because I realized that the uncertainty, the not knowing, was somehow even worse than any truth could possibly be. The Coffee Corner was a small, shabby place, tucked between a laundromat and a vacant storefront on the east side of Charleston. It was the kind of place where people went when they didn't want to be noticed, when they wanted to disappear into the background. The lunch crowd had mostly cleared out by the time I arrived, leaving just a handful of customers scattered among the mismatched tables and chairs.